finally, the Kundalini. Now, the Kundalini is one of the most misunderstood, feared, also the most wanted thing as we look at the concepts around the chakras. And it's hard for any particular source, book, website, or piece of information around the chakras to really be 100% when it comes to understanding the concept without adding in the Kundalini. And it's a very crucial part of the system of the chakras. And so the Kundalini has been a subject of debate, of discussion, very deeply analyzed as well. It also has been like the prize experience of those who are adept in things like yoga and practicing and studying yoga for many years. And when I say many years, I'm talking about thousands of years. And when it comes to the hidden parts of the Kundalini, those secrets were actually passed down orally, traditionally, from gurus to students. And it was kind of like, in a lot of ways, like a rite of passage. It wasn't something that was just automatically given or readily available, but the student actually had to demonstrate a level of integrity, right? There were like tests of sorts that they had to prove themselves through. They had to prove their purity and their discipline before being able to receive these secrets around the Kundalini. But since it has been brought over here, where we are in the Western region, right, the United States, it since has become very mundane, or it just has become public knowledge, and it's no longer something that's held as sacred as it was over in other parts of the world, and as it still is, I would imagine. And so now the Kundalini yoga is really practiced widely when it comes to yoga, which really taps into awareness and mobilization of life force, that prana that we were talking about. Overall, the Kundalini is seen and discussed in many different ways. There are many contradictions with how people see the Kundalini. Some of those contradictions and some of those ways of understanding it or trying to relate to the Kundalini are very deep in culture, specifically in the culture of India, for example. Some of the ways that the Kundalini is seen can be a challenge, you know, for those from other parts of the world. For, say, like us in the Western culture, it could be a little bit of a challenge for us to actually understand how they see the Kundalini and how they relate to it, as we'll discuss in a little bit here. But for this purpose, in this short discussion introducing the concept of the Kundalini, we're not really going to go deep into esoteric knowledge when it comes to the Kundalini. We're just going to focus basically on what it is and what your Kundalini specifically can do for you, right? How to make it work as well. And so the Kundalini is, of course, a Sanskrit term. Again, we've been talking a lot in Sanskrit as it pertains to chakra and the language around it. And in Sanskrit, the Kundalini means coiled one. In ancient esoteric yoga, the concept of the Kundalini is the feminine energy, right? It's a feminine energy concept that is driven by the feminine energy, coiled like a serpent at the base of the spine, which is the root chakra, right? And as it's awakened, usually through things like yoga, things like spiritual practices of sorts, there is said to be this desire of the Kundalini to merge, to come together with the masculine energy. And that masculine energy is sometimes represented as a Hindu god named Shiva. And so the Kundalini rises up through each of the chakras and opens them as she rises, energizing and activating those chakras when they're receptive, right? And when it's all said and done, there is this this gradual awakening that leads to an overall enlightenment, is where that leads. This enlightenment also accompanied by this intense activation of creative energy. I almost feel like that sacro chakra energy, this creative energy and spiritual awareness through the body is cultivated and activated and sparked. And so the term or the example of the snake, right, it's talking about this coil movement through the body up through the chakras. It's usually compared to a snake, or that's used as an example, right? And it's attached to the idea of the Kundalini. But if you're someone who has a fear of snakes or, or revulsion or repulsive is the word I'm looking for to snakes, maybe there's something else that you can use in place of picturing a snake, right? But it's important to understand overall that the Kundalini is not separate from the body. It actually is part of the body. It is from you, right? But it's not foreign to the body. It is a divine source of power within you. And it's separate from the divine power of the universe, but at the same time, it is incomplete without the divine power of the universe. And so yoga Kundalini is actually a form of yoga that actually tries to awaken and utilize that energy that the Kundalini energy brings, right? It tries to utilize that through things like meditation, through things like the poses during yoga, through things like breathing exercises and the chanting, the vibration from the chanting, and many other techniques as well. But the goal of all of these techniques is that the individual would realize their inner divinity and their inner oneness with God. Not only with God, but with every part of creation, right? There's also the seeking to kind of join what's already in fruition, okay? So that the realization of this true understanding or comprehension of our own inner divinity and also our connection with God and also this universal energy and our connection with everything that is created, right? Whatever your higher power is or that sacred force within, that is the whole purpose of it, is to bring all of this together. And when these two extreme forces are brought together and connected, the divinity and the universal divinity through the Kundalini techniques that cause the Kundalini to actually rise, right? Rise up through the body and actually do what it does. And so there's a new level of understanding that's reached. It's almost like a sort of enlightenment that happens when the Kundalini rises. And it's almost like a spiritual evolution that takes place that pushes us forward, or it advances us forward. And it doesn't mean like it's a permanent quantum leap is the word I'm thinking of. Instead, it's more like a glimpse that you receive, or a temporary immersion into the higher self, right? I'm imagining just kind of quantum leaping through a tunnel and being able to see things just for a second, right? It's a glimpse. And so the question sometimes is brought up as to whether or not you can actually perceive or believe and awaken the Kundalini without having this concept of a higher power, or without believing in any particular form of a creator or a God. Another question is, what happens if you're not completely sure about what that higher power or that source looks like for you, if you don't have a solid concept? And so with the Kundalini, this is really a source of divinity within us, within you. It is you, excuse me, and it is yours. And it is this catalyst for connecting with every part of creation, including source, including the higher power. And that can mean different things to different people. I mean, there's not just one way of seeing your source or connecting with your source. And so it looks different for everybody. Kundalini can be described it cannot be described in words, whereas the actual experience gets justice, right? You just can't bring the correct words to describe the experience. But it's not even about the words. It's more about the experience, the quest for the universal meaning, right? So rather than arguing over semantics and terminology, I feel like it's more about the journey and the experience, and you moving in the direction that makes sense to you, that feels right to you, that connects you. Because the Kundalini is really difficult to understand and really to grasp, right? It's often explained, that's why there's so many metaphors. Because when we talk about spirit, in order to get an understanding, many times we have to relate it to things that we can see and understand. And so one of the common metaphors about the Kundalini is the goddess who seeks her male counterpart, Shiva, right? And when that connection happens and there is, I'm going to use the word arousal, she rises through the Kundalini to reach Shiva at the crown chakra, where they merge in holy union, right? And remember, it's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor to bring a deeper level of understanding and possibly a visual, right? It's something to help you grasp a picture of what the Kundalini does within and for the body. And I guess this could be a metaphor that makes sense to a certain type of people or a certain culture of people. You know, maybe people in the culture over in India, you know, who would be familiar with the concepts of Shiva and the identity of other gods and goddesses that are talked about within that culture. And for that reason, it may not work for everybody, that idea around that, right? Especially people from other belief systems. And that's okay. Because remember, this is coming from a specific culture, these practices, right? And it's the idea is kind of molded around this union with the Kundalini, the feminine energy, and Shiva. Then when we think about it and we look at that, we may say, that kind of doesn't make sense. It almost sounds like it's the hookup spot. You know, it comes together and there's this holy union, right? But the idea around the union between the Kundalini and Shiva just represents the union of consciousness within us and then the universal consciousness coming together, right? It's kind of a glimpse of the divine spark within you, within me. And if we were to bring it down or bring it over to our cultural norms and terms, right, we would say something like the Kundalini rising is like maybe an example of like your own perfection by finally being able to see your place in the total scheme of the universe, right? The ultimate answer to who am I and what does all of it mean, right? It's like the ultimate enlightenment and clarity around that. And so when the Kundalini reaches through all the 7 chakras, you know that answer. Excuse me. And it's not something that anyone can tell you or give you the answer to, because each of us have our own unique unfolding of that, or that what that is, that experience or that manifestation of divine energy. And there's only one you within the whole universe, right? And when there's that recognition of self, finally, it's going to be a unique experience, unlike anyone else's experience. It's going to be unique to you. And so in yoga philosophy, it is believed that we are all one. We're all connected, right? Not only with each other, but also with the divine universal presence. Everything in creation, we're one with it. But at the same time, even though we're all one, we're different, right? And as we dwell here on earth, in our earthly vessels, like we can see how different we are, right? And so we're one, but at the same time, we can also recognize and see how much our experiences are similar, yet there is a difference that we see within each of us, right? There's a distinction. So you can pretty much awaken the Kundalini, and it's not easy, right? It's not going to be like riding a wave of ecstasy and just rolling in, right? It's not quite that simple. You can awaken the Kundalini, but you can't just do it like rolling in on a wave, right? That would be the perfect idea. But because the Kundalini is actually like an ultimate fusion, it takes time. It takes care. There's preparation involved, necessary. There's the commitment that needs to be put in. Just like a relationship, any good relationship takes commitment and a good connection for it to work. And the Kundalini is like, it's like that, right? Definitely, hands down, one of the best gifts that we can be given in life, along with our bodies, right? But of course, not only our bodies, our minds, and most of all, our spirits and our souls. And we don't want to waste it. We don't want to waste all of these gifts that's been given, but we use them to become better, right? And we want to use it to experience life in a more happier way, in a clearer way, a more healthier way, a more peaceful way. Now, let's talk about what the Kundalini is not, right? So, what the Kundalini is not. Now, You may have heard several things about the Kundalini, negative things that made you wonder. You could have read about a lot of things about the Kundalini, and those things could have been about how the Kundalini, there's a danger of trying to get the Kundalini to rise, dangers of awakening before time, or awakening this serpent power, right? You could have heard, let me see what some other stories about how the Kundalini moves and how it feels weird, and the sensations of intense heat and cold within your spinal column. You could have heard this about rumors of fleeting, fluttering, or slithering movements in your body, you know, these spontaneous sensations. You could have even heard about hearing things, or hearing voices, or having hallucinations as well. There's even been talk about violent reactions to the Kundalini awakenings that led to, you know, some type of psychotic break, and or maybe even that led to death, you know. And I have to admit, all of those things are quite disturbing and does sound scary. But what I would say is there's a lot of theories about so-called dangers of awakening the Kundalini. But the truth of the matter is that the Kundalini is already within you, right? It's already within you. It's a part of you. And an awakening, an inner awakening to what's already within you cannot hurt you, will never hurt you. There may have even been, you know, cases of people who have claimed to have violent psychopathic episodes, and it could have been presumed or associated to be the Kundalini awakening that caused that. But if I could suggest that those people were possibly already suffering, right, from some type of mental illness or disorder. May I submit that? In other cases, people who were just embedded for hours and hours of meditation, that they actually caused themselves to be thrown out of balance, right? Anything out of balance can be detrimental. You know, even something good overdone and taken out of balance and done in excess can cause some type of detriment to the health of the body, right? And so it could be, that could have been maybe around things like forgetting to eat, or by fasting, that because you're so consumed with this thing that you're trying to do. You know, problems in the body can definitely be compounded, especially by things like dehydration, you know, forgetting to eat or drink. And let's not forget about the fact that our minds as humans are incredibly complex, and also incredibly susceptible to suggestion. And so, all that being said, the fact of the matter is emotional and mental issues are pretty common within the human species. And sometimes those problems can go hand in hand with the quest for certain experiences around things like religion, or even simple things like just wanting to understand yourself better. Yeah, right? And so may I submit that if you do have any emotional or mental issues, an intense dive into this search for like the awakening of the Kundalini it could definitely result in some psychological issues, but it isn't the Kundalini that's doing it, that's causing those psychological issues. It's actually an imbalance that's within already. And that would mean that you need to seek help, right, from a professional, someone who is trained and who understands your the context of whatever the problem is that you could be experiencing, whether you're seeking within or whether you're not. You know, that's something that probably needs, or if it has happened, it needed to be done regardless. That's seeking for assistance. And so if that is the case, by all means, please, 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 please do seek help from a counselor, from a therapist. If you're suffering from some type of chemical imbalance or any other type of imbalance within your body, please do seek help, right? But if for some reason you're not suffering from any type of imbalances physically, emotionally, or spiritually, and there's no issues involved, right? It's understanding that the chakras will not cause an imbalance, right? If there's already an imbalance there, the chakras will only reveal that, right? And so if there is an imbalance in some type of way, understand that the Kundalini will not rise, right? The body has its own internal security system in which it kicks in to protect the body, right? Now, on the other hand, if you are sound in your health, if you're a healthy person, if you're balanced and primed for a spiritual experience, then you're ready, to embark on an experience of the Kundalini rising. And in that case, if you aren't suffering from any type of imbalance, there is no worry. Like, you won't suffer from mental breakdown, or you won't have to fear just dropping dead because you practice the Kundalini awakening exercise, right? Or anything of the like. And so it's important to understand that when you are in an unhealthy state and you have a physical physician, and you have a physical or emotional issue, or you suffer from episodes, understand that it's not the Kundalini. Understand that it's not the chakras. It's something within that needs to be addressed. And there is a need to follow up with a medical or mental health professional. And if that is the case, then there's something that you may have been distressed by physically, emotionally, could have been spiritually too. And if that is the case as well, please do. If you're not able to resolve them on your own, seek professional help. I'm going to say that again. Seek professional help. Please do. Okay? But the Kundalini is definitely a powerful internal energy force, right? It's your power. But once again, if your chakras are not open, if they're not ready, if they're not healthy, meaning you're not open and ready mentally, physically, spiritually, if that's the case, the Kundalini cannot move through them. Right? Your chakras will keep the Kundalini down by closing the little round doors, right? That's what will happen. That's what happens when your internal security system kicks in to protect your body, because it knows that you're not ready. But if your chakras are open, if they are ready, because you're physically, mentally, and spiritually balanced and strong, then you're ready to transform that energy of the Kundalini, right? And so Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. I am so excited. I couldn't wait to talk about the Kundalini. I know it's complex, but there you have it, the Kundalini. And if you have been following along, we are actually doing a 7-episode series on the chakras and mantra. In that episode, in that series, we are going through the chakras one by one to learn about them. And part of learning about the chakras is understanding how they work, what they are, all of the necessary components that link into it. And so that's why we're talking about the Kundalini today, because it is a vital part of the overall chakra system. And so if you are interested in learning more, we are releasing, I think we're on episode number 5. We're on episode number 5, yes. But there are a few videos, meditation videos accompanied with mantra. Go over and take a listen. I will place the link down in my description box where you can just click on and take a listen to the meditation series being released as we speak. Along with that series, there's also additional videos such as this one that's giving more in-depth information on what it is that we are learning about and discovering with the chakras. I go into detail on each chakra as we do the meditation video. There's also additional information and videos for each chakra, just giving a little bit more understanding of how that chakra affects the body and how that chakra's effect on the body can affect life overall and your interaction with the world around you. And so I am excited to be able to learn more about just being in a more healthy state. You know, if it is going to add more joy to life, if it's going to add more health to life, if it's going to add a more skillful life, I'm all for it. And so if you'd like to join us, you are more than welcome to go over and take a look. Click on some of those videos, comment, like, share. Let me know what you think about the information. There's definitely more to come. And who knows what will come after this. But thank you so much for stopping by and taking a listen. I appreciate you. Until next time, take care of yourself. All right. Bye.